Hello, my friends. Today we'll start right away with the situation along the front line. To begin with, Russian forces continue to show activity along the border in the Sumy direction. There is a lull, but near the village of Alexandria, the Russians are trying to break through the border. They haven't had any success so far, and all attacks are currently being repelled. In the area of Vovchansk, activity is not decreasing. The Russians are trying to push toward the village of Gravske and are also assaulting Staritsa, Prilipka, Vilcha, and the outskirts of Vovchansk. At the same time, there is some information circulating that hasn't yet been confirmed, suggesting that Russian forces may be capturing certain positions and advancing further. For now, we are waiting for confirmation. In the Dvorichna direction, the Russians are not carrying out any new assaults and the situation remains stable. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are assaulting Holubivka and Petropavlivka and are trying to break through toward Peshane and the surrounding fields, as well as toward Kurylivka. Activity has increased slightly, but the armed forces of Ukraine are managing to repel all attacks, and Russian forces haven't been able to advance further. In the Borova direction, the Russians are assaulting Boguslavka, Nova Kruglякivka, Novoyegorivka, and Druzhelyubivka, but there have been no changes over the past day. In the Lyman direction, Russian forces continue attempts to advance closer to Lyman. They are assaulting Stavky, Drobышеvo, and Novoselivka and are trying to push past the village of Saratny. Sabotage and reconnaissance groups are also continue moving toward Sviatohirsk. However, so far there is no information confirming that Russian forces have managed to advance with large number of troops. So the front line remains without major changes. But last night, information also emerged that the Russians began dropping unknown objects on Sviatohirsk. In Sviatohirsk, Slavyansk direction, the Russians have started dropping unidentified objects. Falls of unknown items have been recorded within the settlement. Preliminary assessments suggest these may be markers for guiding Russian drones or improvised explosive devices, but it is currently difficult to state this with certainty. In the Slavyansk direction, the Russians continue attempts to push past Dronivka and carrying out a large number of shelling attacks, but there have been no changes over the past day. In the Kostiantynivka direction, the Russians are assaulting Stinke, Pretechene, the outskirts of Kostiantynivka, Pleshiyivka, Klebanbyk, and are trying to break through past Ivanopilya, Yablonivka, and Rusan Yar. As a result, activity in this area is quite high. The Russians claim they are managing to advance closer to Kostiantynivka, and this is generally true. However, the armed forces of Ukraine are not allowing them to gain a foothold, so the front line remains unchanged. In the Dobropilya direction, the Russians are assaulting Torske and Sofievka, but over the past day they haven't achieved any success and the situation remains unchanged for now. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians haven't changed the direction of their attacks, but they have been unable to advance further and the situation there remains stable. In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians are not carrying out any new assaults today and the front line remains unchanged. In the direction of the settlement of Pokrovske in the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Russians are trying to break through toward Sosnivka, Oleksiivka, Vishneva, and Yegorivka. Shalon is also ongoing, but the front line remains unchanged and all attacks are being successfully repelled. In the Huliaipole direction, activity is even higher. Here, the Russians are attempting to break through in the villages of Solotke, Dobropilya, Varvarivka, and Zelene, and there are even reports of assaults on the village of Sviatohirsk. So, in addition, the Russians are advancing from Dorozhnyanka toward Huliaipole, which clearly indicates Russian plans to encircle the city. However, over the past day, there have been no changes along the front line. The armed forces of Ukraine continue to repel attacks as much as possible. Overall, the situation here is difficult. In the Zaporizhia direction, the Russians are assaulting Stepove and carrying out Shalin, but they haven't achieved any success over the past day, and the level of offensive activity here remains minimal for now. Due to the fact that Russian forces previously managed to create a gray zone in Prymorske, evacuations are continuing from nearby settlements. In the Kherson direction, there was likewise only one attack in the area of the Antonivsky Bridge, and there have been no changes there. Meanwhile, Trump reposted an AI-generated image of himself smoking a Cuban cigar and wrote that this would definitely happen. In response, the president of Cuba stated, Cuba is a free, independent, and sovereign state. No one dictates to us what to do. Cuba doesn't attack. The United States has been attacking it for 66 years, and Cuba poses no threat. It's preparing itself, ready to defend the homeland to the last drop of blood. Thus, they clearly don't intend to give in to Trump easily. Meanwhile, reports from Iran indicate hundreds of deaths as a result of the protests. The death toll during the protests in Iran has exceeded 500 people, Reuters reports, citing assessments by human rights organizations. According to confirmed data, 490 protesters and 48 members of the security forces have been killed. In addition, more than 10,600 people have been arrested over 2 weeks of unrest in the country. And it's possible that Trump may intervene in the near future. Trump is expected to be presented with options for aggression against Iran. On Tuesday, Trump will be briefed on possible US response scenarios to the Iranian authorities' crackdown on nationwide protests. The discussion will include options such as cyber operations, increased sanctions pressure, support for protesters via the internet, and the possibility of targeted military strikes. At the same time, sources emphasize that no final decisions are expected to be made at this stage. US Secretary of State Rubio and Secretary of Defense Hexet will take part in the meeting. Meanwhile, experts have examined the remnants of the Oreshnik and reported that the Russians are still using Soviet-era technology. The Oreshnik is equipped with a gyroscope that Gagarin once flew to space with and Soviet-era vacuum tubes, CNN reports. The Russian Oreshnik missile, which Russia used to attack Ukraine for the second time on the night of January 9, 2026, was made from outdated Soviet components. This was stated in an interview with CNN by Andriy Kulchitsky, head of the the KNDISE Research Laboratory, analysis of the missile fragments contradicts Putin's claims of modern weaponry. So, as can be seen, apart from Chinese drones, Russia has nothing truly modern to show, unlike the United States. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom is preparing new ballistic missiles for Ukraine. The UK intends to develop a new Nightfall ballistic missile for Ukraine with a range of over 500 kilometers. The Sun reports citing UK Defense Secretary John Gill. It is noted that Nightfall missiles can be quickly launched from vehicles. Their range will even allow them to reach Moscow from Ukrainian territory. Overall, it's clear that there are no plans to stop the war in the near future. Friends, be sure to share your thoughts on this in the comments. And that's all from me, so please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.